The seconds are out. The crowd is waiting. The boxers are getting ready to battle. Time for another edition of the Shoulder Roll Virtual Boxing Podcast with your presenter, Greg Rashid.
I want to say Swati Krap to everyone out there. This is Greg Rashid with another edition of the Shoulder Roll Virtual Boxing Podcast. We're at your convenience on various platforms, but a lot of people listen every Sunday afternoon at 3 p.m. Mountain Time in Colorado on KUHSdenver.com, created by the one and only Henry R. Shaletta. And I want to say hi to all my friends in the Colorado region. I keep saying I'm coming back. I am going to come back to visit sooner than you think. But anyway, we're going to get to the show right now because we got some construction you may hear in the background. And real quickly, what we do in this program, we do fantasy fights. We take different modalities. Today we're using Legends of Boxing 2 PC game to create this fight, which will be a heavyweight fight between Tyson Fury and Evander Holyfield. And that should be a barn burner, a real exciting fight. And before we do that, we have Felicia coming on, giving us our boxing history. And after that, we'll have the fight, and the fight will be announced by the one and only Hall of Famer, legendary Sonny Huff. But right now, we'll get to the history of the week with Felicia. And I'm going to be quiet because they're about to pound on the walls here because they're constructing something up the way here. So let's hear that on the Shoulder Roll Virtual Boxing Podcast.
What's going on, my absolute ringside darlings? It's your girl Felicia, back in the booth and bringing you your weekly fix of pugilistic history for the week of August 23rd through August 29th. Buckle up, because we've got everything from dusty archives to money-printing crossover spectacles. August 23rd, 1933, the screen debut. BBC Television aired the world's very first televised bout, a 6-round middleweight exhibition between Archie Sexton and Laurie Ryteri at Broadcasting House in London. With only a handful of television sets existing in Britain at the time, the fighters probably outnumbered the viewers, but modern sports broadcasting was officially born. August 24th, 1956. Old Bones takes the throne. Joe Brown snatched the world lightweight crown with a gritty 15-round split decision over Wallace "Bud" Smith. Brown broke his right hand in the second round and still boxed his way to the belt, proving that some people simply refuse to let a shattered bone ruin their weekend. August 25th, 1941. Gloves off, boots on. World Championship Boxing officially froze its titles as over 4,000 professional fighters enlisted in the military during World War II. For 5 years, the global championship scene went on ice so the real battle could be fought overseas. August 26th, 2017. The Golden 50. Floyd Mayweather Jr. stepped out of retirement to stop UFC superstar Conor McGregor in the 10th round. It was half pure entertainment, half cash vault heist, but it took money to a flawless 50-0, while Conor discovered that 10-ounce boxing gloves get real heavy around round 8. August 27th, 1943. Idol turned opponent. Sugar Ray Robinson took a 10-round unanimous decision over his childhood hero, Henry Armstrong. Robinson openly admitted he held back on the aging legend out of sheer respect, which might be the most terrifying compliment in sports history. August 28th, 1959. The Utah Bruiser strikes. Gene Fullmer battered the legendary Carmen Basilio to claim the NBA World Middleweight title via a 14th-round TKO. It was an all-out phone booth slugfest that left both men looking like they'd fought a bear in a blender. August 29th, 1885. The modern era arrives. The bare-knuckle days hit the canvas when the Boston strong boy, John L. Sullivan, took on Dominic McCaffrey, It marked the first heavyweight title clash governed by the modern Marquis of Queensberry rules, introducing mandatory 3-ounce gloves and standard 3-minute rounds. Before I sign off, you all know I genuinely adore this community. I read every single email that hits my inbox. Your hot takes, your wild scorecards, and your fight memories keep this show rolling. A massive, heartfelt shout-out this week to my brand new listeners tuning in from Chile. Muchísimas gracias. Having the fight fans of Santiago and beyond in our corner means the world to me. Keep your hands up, your chin tucked, and I'll catch you on the next bell.
Hi, this is legendary Hall of Famer and award winner Sonny Huff, coming to you tonight from a sold-out MGM Grand in Las Vegas. The energy under the neon lights of the Strip is absolutely deafening tonight, boxing fans. We are sitting ringside for a clash of eras, a heavyweight showdown between two undisputed warriors. Let's look at the men walking to the squared circle. In the red corner, we have the legendary, real deal, Evander Holyfield. Rising from the 1984 Olympics to clean out the cruiserweight division, Holyfield made history by jumping up to the heavyweight ranks and claiming undisputed gold against James Buster Douglas. Through epic blood and guts wars with Riddick Bowe, Michael Moorer, and his unforgettable masterclasses against Mike Tyson, Holyfield has built a legacy on iron-willed resolve, granite punch resistance, and ruthless inside infighting. Across the ring in the blue corner stands the 6'9" behemoth from Morecambe, England, the Gypsy King, Tyson Fury. Undefeated lineal champion, a man who broke Vladimir Klitschko's decade-long reign in Germany before resurrecting his career from the brink of oblivion. Fury shocked the world with his historic trilogy against Deontay Wilder, proving that a giant can possess the nimble footwork of a middleweight, an elusive defensive guard, and the heart to rise from the dead. The referee gives the final instructions. The crowd is on its feet, and the bell sounds. Round one. Fury immediately begins circling to his left, flicking out a long, probing jab to establish the perimeter. Holyfield stays low, bobbing and weaving beneath the range, trying to close the vast reach gap. Holyfield darts in with a double jab to the midsection, but Fury ties him up quickly. They separate. Fury feints a jab, steps in, and bam! A lightning-fast uppercut snaps Holyfield's head straight back. That was a peach of a shot. Holyfield nods and keeps pressing, but look at Holyfield's left eye as they walk back to their corners. The tissue under the brow is already swelling rapidly. A razor-thin frame, but that uppercut made the definitive noise. Round two. Holyfield charges out fast, head low, looking to crowd Fury against the ropes. They tangle inside, digging short hooks into the ribs. The referee jumps in, separating the fighters and issuing a stern, direct warning to Holyfield for leading aggressively with the top of his crown. A dangerous head clash averted. Back in the center, Fury switches momentarily southpaw, tapping Holyfield with light jabs, while Holyfield times a heavy counter right hand to Fury's chest. Another fiercely contested 3 minutes. Round three. Fury finds an early rhythm, twitching his shoulders and using jerky upper body feints to confuse Holyfield. Holyfield refuses to bite, patiently stalking Fury around the canvas. Holyfield connects with a crisp hook to the body, but Fury counters cleanly with a sharp 1-2 combination over the top. Both men trade stiff jabs as the round comes to a close in a battle of pure tactical positioning. Round four. Holyfield turns up the heat, walking through Fury's rangy, pawing jabs to unleash a 3-punch combination against the ropes. Fury rolls under the final right hand, clips Holyfield with a short counter left on the break, and dances back out to the center ring. It's give and take. Every single exchange is split down the middle by millimeter margins. Round five. Explosive action right out of the gate. Holyfield ducks under a sluggish Fury jab, steps in with terrifying authority, and crack! A massive left hook catches Fury on the jaw, followed instantly by a thunderous right cross. Fury is staggered. His legs buckle and turn to jelly. Smelling blood, Holyfield wades in for the kill, but Fury desperately lunges forward and wraps his massive 270-pound frame tightly around Holyfield's arms. Fury refuses to let go, dragging his weight down on the real deal. The referee steps in, repeatedly yelling, "Break!" before forcibly peeling Fury off and issuing a formal warning to Fury for excessive and intentional holding. Fury survives the remaining 30 seconds behind an anxious defensive shell. Round 6. Fury comes out with renewed caution, bouncing on his toes and maximizing every inch of his reach to keep the surging Holyfield at bay. Holyfield targets Fury's midsection with punishing hooks, trying to dig the breath out of the bigger man. Fury fires back with stinging straight rights that snap Holyfield's head back, evening out the ledger in another exhausting, close round. Round 7. Holyfield drives Fury into the neutral corner, banging away with short uppercuts. As they grapple tight against the turnbuckle, Holyfield lunges in and their heads collide with a sickening thud. The referee immediately halts the bout, stepping between them to issue a second official warning to Holyfield for headbutting, making it crystal clear that the next offense could cost a point. The action resumes with Fury pumping out stiff double jabs, while Holyfield answers with venomous looping rights over the guard. Round 8. Both gladiators trade in the center of the ring. Fury uses his height to drape his forearm across Holyfield's guard, sneaking in short, chopping rights, while Holyfield works the liver with thudding body punches. The pace is grueling, and neither man gives an inch of canvas as they exchange blows until the bell clangs. Round 9. Fury picks up the tempo, flicking long combinations and pivoting smartly away from Holyfield's lunging hooks. Holyfield counters with a sharp overhand right that grazes Fury's temple, forcing the Gypsy King to reset. The tactical brilliance on display here is mesmerizing. Pure championship boxing, where every round hangs on a knife's edge. Round 10. Midway through the round, Fury uncorks a sensational disguised left uppercut right through the middle. Boom! Holyfield is visibly stunned. He wobbles on unsteady legs, his equilibrium completely hijacked. Fury swarms forward, looking to finish, pinning Holyfield back toward the ropes. In the final 10 seconds, with the tension at fever pitch, a frantic exchange turns physical. Fury uses his heavy forearms to blatantly shove Holyfield down to the canvas. Holyfield hits the deck. The crowd erupts, but the referee immediately waves his arms frantically. No knockdown. The referee sternly reprimands Fury for the blatant push. Holyfield rises slowly, still noticeably unsteady from that ferocious uppercut earlier in the round. Round 11. Holyfield shows that legendary warrior spirit, digging deep into his reserves to march forward despite the punishment. He backs Fury against the ropes, ripping both hands into the body and upstairs. Fury stays composed, rolling with the hardest shots and firing sharp counters down the pipe. It is an absolute dogfight in the championship rounds. Round 12, the final 3 minutes, and the MGM Grand is on its feet, roaring. Holyfield comes out swinging with reckless abandon. They trade toe-to-toe in the center of the ring. And there it is. Smack! A vicious short left hook from Holyfield connects flush under Fury's eye. Blood immediately starts dripping from a nasty cut below Fury's right eye. Fury fires back with a furious combination of his own, and they trade leather until the final bell rings. What an incredible, grueling 12-round war. The official scorecards have been tallied. Judge Dave Moretti scores it 116 to 114. Judge Glenn Feldman scores it 116 to 114. And Judge Adelaide Bird scores it 117 to 113. All three for the winner by unanimous decision, Evander, the real deal, Holyfield. Now, while Holyfield certainly fought with relentless courage, that 117 to 113 tally from Bird is utterly baffling to me. This fight was contested on razor margins from the opening bell to the final bell. It was nowhere near a 4-round blowout. I will now return you to our Bangkok studios. This is legendary Hall of Famer Sonny Huff. And remember, every day is a great day when it is sunny.
All right. I think that's the first time Sonny's ever given his opinion about a fight. Usually he just commentates on the fight and that's it. But he was a little disappointed in that decision there. And I have to say, too, that I actually thought that it would be a draw. But what do you think listening to that? And I know some people out there may be saying, well, Holyfield against a giant like Tyson Fury? No. Holyfield would get in your grill and just mess with you. He's one of the best boxers ever. I'm not putting him in my top 10, but he's something. I really like Evander, despite the fact that he does use his head often. But anyway, hope you enjoyed that fight. And also Felicia's commentary. And speaking of top 10s, I recently wrote an article in response to Ring Magazine. They posted their top 10 living boxers. And I took exception to some of the names on there, so I created my own list. And I posted an article. And Malcolm and Ella got a little upset about it. They went after me about some of the names I put on there. And so they're going to talk about it right now on their commentary here on the Shoulder Roll Virtual Boxing Podcast.
Welcome to the debate. I mean, just imagine stepping into a boxing ring at 48 years old and you're staring across the canvas at a world champion who's literally 2 decades your junior.
Yeah, it's practically a death wish.
Right? You know your fast twitch reflexes are maybe half of what they used to be, your bones ache from like 30 years of grueling training camps, and yet somehow you still figure out a way to systematically dismantle that younger fighter and walk out with the belt.
It's incredible.
It is. But how do we weigh that kind of blood and guts endurance against a totally different type of fighter? I mean, the kind who retires at 32, utterly untouched, having designed a defensive matrix so mathematically perfect that no opponent ever figured out how to even leave a mark on them.
Well, that is the ultimate philosophical divide in combat sports, isn't it? Like, are we measuring who survived the longest, most brutal journey, or who walked the tightrope without ever once losing their balance?
Exactly.
And in a sport as unforgiving as boxing, where the objective is literally to inflict physical trauma on the other guy, how you define greatness usually comes down to whether you value an unblemished record or, a willingness to just bleed for greatness.
Which brings us right to the core of our discussion today. We are analyzing a newly published ranking of the top 10 living retired boxers, and this specific list was constructed by the author in direct response to a Ring Magazine article by Patrick Connor.
Right, and it's caused quite a stir.
Oh, definitely. The author made a deliberate choice to focus strictly on retired fighters, to evaluate complete, closed-book legacies. But in doing so, they've drawn this massive line in the sand regarding what truly makes a fighter immortal.
They certainly did. I mean, the central disagreement we're unpacking today is this. When ranking the greatest living retired fighters, should true greatness be measured by multi-decade endurance, an immense volume of fights, and the sheer audacity of multi-division risk-taking?
Or
should it be measured by unblemished dominance, technical perfection, and actual head-to-head superiority?
So this debate emerges directly from the author's own rankings and the specific, and let's be honest, sometimes highly unconventional justifications they provided in the text. I'll be arguing that this list, despite some admitted quirks, actually succeeds. It successfully identifies true greatness by viewing the sport through the lens of longevity, adaptation, and multi-division conquests.
Wow. Okay.
Ultimately, it rewards the fighters who tested the absolute outer limits of human physiology.
Well, I come at it from a completely different way. I'll be arguing that the list's methodology is fundamentally compromised from the ground up. By the author's own explicit admission, personal bias plays a heavy role in these rankings, which is, frankly, it's wild for a historical list.
It's transparent, at least.
Transparently flawed. That bias inevitably ignores crucial head-to-head realities, and it sidelines undefeated technical mastery in favor of fighters who just, well, took far more damage.
Okay, let's get right into the mechanics of why I believe the author gets this right. To me, true greatness in boxing isn't just about preserving a zero in your loss column by staying safe in your comfort zone.
Safe is doing a lot of heavy listing there?
I mean, relatively speaking. It's about the absolute scope of a career. Look at Roberto Duran, who sits at number 1 on this list. We aren't just talking about a guy with a good chin. Duran fought professionally across 4 different decades, from 1968 all the way to 2001.
Which is a ridiculous timeline.
It is. He amassed a staggering 103-16 record.
And you see that sheer volume as the ultimate trump card?
I do because of how he achieved it, you know. Duran started as a lightweight, 135 pounds, where he was this ferociously powerful pressure fighter. But as he aged and his body changed, he didn't just retire, he adapted.
He did move up, yeah.
He moved up through 4 weight classes, competing at an elite level well into his 40s by relying on masterful defensive slipping and inside fighting. You also see this validated in the author's placement of Manny Pacquiao at number 8. The text highlights his literally impossible feat of winning titles in 8 distinct weight divisions, from 106 pounds all the way up to 154 pounds.
Which is a massive physical leap. I'll grant you that.
It defies physiology. We're talking about a man increasing his fighting weight by nearly 50% while somehow maintaining his hand speed and punch resistance against men with significantly larger bone structures. That defines a legacy of taking the ultimate risks.
Sure, but
The author rightly recognizes that true greatness requires daring to fail, stepping into arenas where you are physically outmatched, and finding a way to win anyway.
look, I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why this approach is a critical failure and why it totally undermines the entire list as a serious analytical document.
Okay, lay it on me.
The author explicitly admits to personal bias, and it violently skews the historical reality of the sport. We have a glaring, undeniable contradiction right out of the gate. They rank Roberto Duran at number 1 and Sugar Ray Leonard all the way down at number 10.
Well,
No, wait. This is despite the text itself confirming that Leonard defeated Duran in the famous No Mas rematch.
you're focusing really heavily on the author's stated bias there.
Because the author forces us to. The text explicitly states, and I quote, "I admit to being biased to my number 1 pick since I have met and interviewed him over the years. I am also biased to my number 10 pick since I have also met him and he is from the DMV area like me."
Right, D.C., Maryland, Virginia.
Yes. We are trying to evaluate the highest level of athletic greatness, and the methodology being used is based on who the author had a pleasant interview with and who shares a geographic zip code in Maryland, Virginia. It makes a mockery of head-to-head results.
I think you're oversimplifying the author's point.
Am I? Sugar Ray Leonard is a 5-division champion. The text explicitly tells us he anchored the Fabulous Four of the 1980s, and that his triumphs include beating Thomas Hearns, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, and Roberto Duran. He beats the number 1 guy on the list, yet is ranked 9 spots below him because of a weaker personal bias? Come on.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective. Let's look at this less like a math equation and more like a battleship.
A battleship?
Hear me out. If you have a pristine, state-of-the-art sports car that wins every race on a perfectly paved track, that's impressive. But a battleship that sails through hurricanes for 40 years, takes on enemy fire, gets dented, gets repaired, and still commands the ocean, that commands a completely different level of awe.
I mean, I guess I see the analogy, but
Yes, the author admits a personal connection, which is actually really honest, but the empirical evidence provided in the text supports Duran's number 1 spot completely independent of that bias.
how so? Because Leonard clearly bested him when they actually fought.
Leonard won the rematch, yes. But let's look at the totality of what the text lays out. Duran made 12 successful lightweight title defenses in the 1970s. His defining victory wasn't just some random win, it was the brawl in Montreal.
Right.
Duran stepped up in weight, completely abandoning his natural physical advantages to face the previously unbeaten Sugar Ray Leonard, and he won. Moving up in weight and taking the power of a naturally bigger, undefeated champion requires a level of grit that simply can't be overstated.
But Leonard figured him out. The text points out Leonard's victory in the No Mas rematch. Leonard used lateral movements, psychological warfare, and angles to completely dismantle Duran to the point where Duran famously just quit on his stool.
It was a bad night for Duran, sure.
If you want to talk about mechanics, Leonard proved his boxing IQ was vastly superior in that second fight.
He won the second fight, absolutely. But again, zoom out to the macro level of their careers. Duran had 119 professional fights. The physical toll of 119 training camps, the sparring, the weight cuts, it's unimaginable.
It is a lot.
Leonard's final record is 36-3-1. That's a fraction of the ring time. I argued that the sheer volume, the 4 decades of relevance, and the grit required to fight 119 times absolutely outweighs a single rematch loss to Leonard when evaluating absolute historic greatness. The author is rewarding the deeper, longer grind.
You are equating volume with value, and that assumes taking damage for 40 years is somehow inherently more noble than avoiding it. And that brings us perfectly to how this author evaluates the rest of the list.
Okay.
If taking damage and sticking around past your prime is your metric for greatness, you are severely punishing fighters who were simply too good to get hit in the first place. Let's look at Ricardo Lopez at number 7 and Kasai Galaxy at number 2.
That's an interesting point, though. I would frame it differently. What is it about Lopez and Galaxy that you feel the list undervalues?
Well, Ricardo El Finito Lopez represents the absolute gold standard of technical boxing perfection. The text explicitly notes his record: 51 wins, 0 losses, 1 draw. He made 21 successful title defenses at minimum weight before moving up to capture the IBF light flyweight crown.
Yeah, he was brilliant.
Now, for anyone listening, minimum weight is 105 pounds. At that weight class, the speed of the fighters is blinding. The margins for error are microscopic. One slip of concentration, one fraction of a second delay in your footwork, and you are knocked out.
True.
Yet Lopez combined flawless footwork, precise combinations, and textbook fundamental defense to navigate that minefield 52 times without a single defeat. He retired completely unblemished.
It's an incredible feat of discipline. I won't argue that.
And look at Kasai Galaxy, the Tyson, 49-1. He made 19 consecutive super flyweight defenses, 16 by knockout, and never lost his belt in the ring. Why on earth is untouched perfection like Lopez ranked at number 7, sitting below fighters who suffered double-digit defeats?
Well,
the primary objective of boxing is to hit and not get hit. Why is a flawless geometric mastery of the ring valued less than a fighter's ability to just take a beating?
Because perfection in a highly controlled environment is fundamentally different from greatness achieved through chaotic, expanding parameters.
Expanding parameters?
Yes. Lopez had flawless footwork, sure, but he only had to adapt that footwork to fighters operating within a roughly 5-pound window of his natural physiology. To understand why the author ranks others higher, look at Bernard Hopkins at number 3 and James Toney at number 9.
Right, 2 fighters with plenty of losses on their records.
Exactly. But look at why they have losses and how they fought. Hopkins built a 55-8-2 record. He set a middleweight record with 20 consecutive defenses. But the text tells us his supreme greatness came when he utterly defied biology.
By fighting forever?
By winning the light heavyweight world championship at age 46, and then breaking his own record to become the oldest world champion in boxing history at age 48. You don't do that with fast twitch muscles. Hopkins survived by turning boxing into a chess match. He mastered clinching, pacing, inside leverage, and psychological disruption to neutralize the speed of men 20 years younger than him.
Which is a brilliant survival mechanism. I agree with that.
And then look at James Toney at number 9. 77 wins, 10 losses. Toney went from middleweight at 160 pounds all the way up to battle elite heavyweights like Evander Holyfield. He did this using the old-school shoulder roll defense.
Right? The Philly shell variation?
Exactly. For those who don't know, the shoulder roll allows a fighter to deflect the kinetic energy of a punch off their shoulder, keeping their chin tucked behind their lead arm and fighting off the back foot. It allowed a naturally smaller man like Tony to absorb and counter the devastating power of heavyweights. I have to pose a critical question to you here.
Go ahead.
Isn't a fighter who adapts their style to win world championships at age 48, or who masters a defensive guard to survive against men 60 pounds heavier, demonstrating a fundamentally higher boxing IQ than a fighter who stays at 105 pounds their entire career?
So you are arguing that adaptation under extreme duress is a higher form of intelligence than flawless execution in a controlled environment.
Precisely. They didn't just defend their belts, they expanded the boundaries of what their bodies were theoretically capable of doing.
That's a compelling argument, but have you considered how inconsistently the author actually applies this standard?
Inconsistently?
Yes, because if technical mastery, high-level adaptation, and dominance are truly the standards, we have to look at the deeply flawed parameters the author used to qualify fighters for this list in the first place. This brings us to some truly controversial exclusions in the honorable mentions.
Oh, you're talking about the boundary of who the author considers retired.
Yes, and who gets pushed out of the top 10 entirely, based on incredibly flimsy logic. The author notes in the text that Manny Pacquiao was almost dropped from the list simply because he talks about fighting again.
Right, the comeback rumors.
The author only kept him because his current bouts are classified as exhibitions. Building a definitive list of historical greatness on whether a guy gave a speculative quote to a reporter is just absurd. But it gets far worse. Look at the fighters the author relegated to the top 15 honorable mentions: Lennox Lewis, Mike Tyson, and Floyd Mayweather Jr.
See, I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning, because you are looking at how these fighters ended their careers, whereas I believe the author is evaluating the absolute historical rarity of their peaks.
But how can you sideline Floyd Mayweather Jr.? We are talking about arguably the greatest defensive master of the modern era, an undefeated multi-division champion who perfected the Philly shell defense to the point of being practically unhittable.
He was brilliant defensively, yes.
His distance management and counterpunching are the literal definition of high boxing IQ. How can the author justify placing Mayweather outside the top 10 entirely while including Roy Jones Jr. at number 5, a fighter who, despite his absolute brilliance, suffered 10 losses, many of them devastating knockouts late in his career?
Well, let's look exactly at what the text says to justify that. Roy Jones Jr. wasn't just a multi-division champion. At his peak in the 1990s, he possessed supernatural hand speed, reflexes, and athletic instinct.
True.
But the historical anomaly that justifies his placement over Mayweather is this. In 2003, Jones stepped up to heavyweight, completely outpointed John Ruiz, and became the first former middleweight champion to win a heavyweight belt in 106 years.
It was historic, yeah.
Think about the physics of that. You are giving up 30 pounds of pure muscle and bone density. One clean punch from a heavyweight against a middleweight frame usually results in a severe concussion. To do that and win, an achievement that hadn't happened in over a century, is a peak so high it justifies the 10 losses that came later when his reflexes faded.
It was a spectacular peak, I don't deny that.
And look at Julio Cesar Chavez at number 6. The text points out he went on an unimaginable 89-fight undefeated streak before his first official draw. 89 fights.
It's a huge number.
In boxing, you are always one bad cut, one twisted ankle, or one lucky punch away from a loss. To fight 89 times at the world-class level with a relentless, forward-marching body attack and not lose once requires a level of consistency that borders on science fiction. I argue that these historic, century-defining peaks absolutely justify their placement over Mayweather and the honorable mentions.
Look, I understand acknowledging historic peaks. Jones Jr. making that 106-year leap is incredible. But boxing is the sport where how you finish matters just as much as how you peak. If we are evaluating a retired fighter's complete legacy, we have to evaluate the entire body of work, including the discipline required to know when the fight is actually over.
So you think Mayweather's discipline to retire undefeated is being punished here?
Exactly. By pushing Mayweather, who navigated multiple weight classes without ever tasting defeat, into a secondary list, the author is essentially penalizing discipline. The author is sending a message that Chavez's 89-fight streak, which ultimately ended in 6 losses and 2 draws as he fought far past his prime, is inherently more valuable than a fighter who knew exactly when to step away to preserve their masterpiece. You are rewarding fighters who didn't know when to quit over fighters who mastered the sport and left on their own terms.
But doesn't that bring us back to the core philosophical split? You want to reward the fighter who carefully curated their exit to avoid taking damage. The author wants to reward the fighter who gave every single ounce of their physical being to the sport until there was absolutely nothing left to give.
Well, if we use that logic, then Larry Holmes, sitting at number 4 on the list, perfectly bridges the gap between our two perspectives.
Oh, I'm glad you brought up Holmes. He is a phenomenal example of both perfection and endurance.
He really is. Holmes opened his career with an astounding 40-0 record. He possessed what many historians consider the greatest, most piston-like left jab in heavyweight history.
Absolutely lethal jab.
Right. And he used that jab to control range and dictate pace, defending his title 20 consecutive times. He gave you the unblemished perfection early on, proving his absolute technical mastery. And then he gave you the grueling endurance, fighting from 1973 all the way to 2002. He didn't avoid the deep waters, but he also didn't lack for technical brilliance.
I completely agree. Holmes is the perfect synthesis of our two arguments, and I think looking at his career helps summarize exactly where I stand on this list as a whole. This ranking, while undeniably shaped by the author's personal experiences and geographic biases, successfully captures the grueling blood and sweat essence of boxing.
If you say so.
It purposely elevates fighters who defied father time, like Bernard Hopkins and Roberto Duran, who reinvented themselves when their physical tools faded. It rewards those who conquered an impossible range of weight classes, like Manny Pacquiao stretching across 8 divisions, or Roy Jones Jr. making that terrifying 106-year leap from middleweight to heavyweight. To me, this list proves that true athletic greatness is about daring to be great over decades, expanding the limits of the human body, even if you take a few losses along the way.
And to summarize my position, this list remains a fascinating but ultimately deeply flawed document. Admitted personal biases overshadow head-to-head realities, which is the ultimate sin in combat sports analysis.
The ultimate sin.
It is. By placing a 5-division champion like Sugar Ray Leonard at the very bottom simply because of a DMV geographic connection, while completely ignoring that his boxing IQ allowed him to beat the #1 fighter on this very list, the rankings lose their objective footing. Furthermore, by sidelining undefeated, unhittable legends like Mayweather and undervaluing the absolute flawless perfection of a technician like Ricardo Lopez, the list fundamentally misses the mark on what constitutes pure boxing mastery.
It is a remarkable tension, isn't it? Examining these highly subjective rankings forces us to define what we truly value, not just in boxing, but in athletic endeavor as a whole. Do we revere the unblemished perfection of a flawless defensive design, or do we stand in awe of the battle-tested endurance of a fighter who refuses to stay down?
It really does challenge the listener to examine their own analytical biases, too. If you value defensive mastery and keeping a 0 in the loss column, your top 10 list is going to look entirely different than this one. The rich histories, the distinct eras, and the massive leaps across weight classes mentioned in this material, from Kaosai Galaxy's blistering reign in Thailand to Duran stepping up for the brawl in Montreal, show just how much more there is to explore in the mechanics and history of this sport.
How to measure greatness in the sweet science. When you look at the legends of the ring, do you look for the pristine, untouched master of defense, or do you look for the weathered, battle-scarred warrior who endured the absolute worst the sport had to offer and just kept swinging? Thank you for joining us.
Boy, Ella really didn't like my article. My goodness. And she just tore into it. Malcolm liked it, but Ella, she didn't like it. But what do you think about that top 10? And by the way, Ella, you're fired. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, hope you enjoyed that on the Shoulder Roll Virtual Boxing Podcast. Who's your top 10 or top #1 living boxer? just drop me a line wherever you listen to the show and let me know. But right now, we're going to get to the music portion of the program because they're getting ready to start hammering again. So we're going to start off a tribute to a woman who recently died, a great R&B singer from the 60s and 70s. You know, and if you really know your soul music, you know this woman. I'm talking about Ruby Andrews. And her big hit was Casanova, Your Playing Days Are Over. So we're going to do a tribute right now to Ruby Andrews on the Shoulder Roll Virtual Boxing Podcast with Casanova. and that was guitarist Wayne Bennett from 1967. That was his instrumental version of Casanova, Your Playing Days Are Over. And before that, in a tribute to Ruby Andrews, we played A Love Feeling. That was from like 77. Then we did Ruby Andrews and You Made a Believer Out of Me, Boy. And started to set off with Casanova, Your Playing Days Are Over by Ruby Andrews, her biggest hit. Hope you enjoyed that. On the Shoulder Roll Virtual Boxing Podcast, as we remember the great Ruby Andrews. And I want to say something too about Wayne Bennett. That particular cut that he did of Casanova, that was his only 45 and name mention on any album or anything. He was basically background guitar player, played for Bobby Blue Bland, Otis Rush. He was in the house band of the Royal Theater in Chicago, did a lot of session work in Chicago. But that was his only song that he actually put his name on it. And he was just a legend, just a legend. You've heard him if you're into soul music, if you're into R&B and blues and jazz. You probably heard him in the background. Great performer, underrated. And we make sure on this program that no one is forgotten. We give the flowers to everyone, be they boxers, athletes, entertainers, anyone who's doing a good thing. We just give it to them so people can learn about them. But again, we're going to get out of here right now. And of course, they started pounding again, and it gets noisy here. So this is Greg Rashid. Go on, love gun, please. We'll see you next time on the Shoulder Roll Boxing Podcast. And please, help someone along the way. Do what you can to make this a better world. We're all on this big blue ball together. So do what you can to make it a better place. Again, go on, love, go in peace. Give someone a smile, a hug, and just make a new friend if you can today. And we'll see you next time on the Shoulder Roll Virtual Boxing Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Please become a member at patreon.com under the title Ringside Fantasy Fights and News. See you next time.